Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would do a Q1 review. So we'll look at some reading stats for the first 3 months of 2024. We will see how I am getting on with my reading goals for the year, and I'll also talk about my favourite books that I've read this year so far. So we'll start off by looking at some Storygraph stats. I'll link my Storygraph down below. And we'll put some screenshots up. Okay, so in the first 3 months of the year, I read 24 books, which was apparently 6,812 pages. So I haven't set myself a numerical goal in terms of how many books I want to read in 2024, just because I don't think it's a particularly helpful goal for me personally, and I know that I'm going to be reading fewer books than I have before, just because of changes in job and stuff like that. I just have less time to read. So 24 books in Q1. This mood chart I think is quite interesting, and I'll tell you why. So my most popular moods in terms of the books I've been picking up are emotional, dark, reflective, mysterious, and then funny. So that sort of pinky red colour there, that's funny. That funny colour on this pie chart is normally like a tiny little sliver, like you can hardly see it, because I don't really read funny books. So that's interesting, and actually 2 of my favourite books that I've read so far this year are both funny. So those are the moods. Then we'll look at the genres. I mean, obviously, as I always say, most of these, well, not most of them, some of these are not actually genres. So by far and away the biggest genre that I've read so far in 2024 is literary, followed by contemporary, and then mystery. Yeah, mystery is always up there. Classics, I think. So like I read quite a lot of golden age crime fiction, which is classed under classics on Storygraph, and then LGBTQIA+. So those are the genres I've been reading. Format is quite interesting because, you may know, I am very much a fan of like reading physical books. That's my preference. However, I have been starting to get into audiobooks a little bit, and you'll see on this pie chart that 13% of my reading is audio. Normally 0% of my reading is audio. So this is good. I like that I'm getting into audio. I tend to listen to audiobooks at my lunch break at work. So I've listened to 3 so far, which were a reread of Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I listened to In at the Deep End by Kate Davis, which we'll talk more about later. And I listened to a short story by Toni Morrison called Recitative, which was excellent. You should definitely read that. And I've also been listening to some like short stories on audio as well. I've got Agatha Christie short story collection called Sinister Spring, which I am a few stories into. So audiobooks are working well for me. And then my star ratings, my average star rating so far was 3.56. Yeah, that's about normal for me, because when I give a book 3 stars, that means I liked it. 4 stars means I loved it. So yeah, between sort of like 3 to 3.5-ish is normally sort of where my average rating falls. Okay, so I have done some of my own stats, and first up is my DNF rate. So I've just decided to recalculate this because I've discounted rereads from my DNF rate. Does that make sense or not? I think it makes sense, because if I'm rereading it, I'm almost certainly not going to DNF it. So like out of the books that are new to me, how many am I finishing and how many am I DNFing? So I think that makes more sense to discount the rereads from that figure. So discounting the rereads, my DNF rate for the year so far is 30%, which is about normal. It normally sits sort of between 30 to 33-ish%. So about 1 in 3 of the books that I pick up I DNF, which is fine. I'm very happy with that. Okay, so in terms of my goals for 2024, my first goal was rereading. So I wanted to reread a minimum of 10 books over the course of 2024. So far, I have reread 4, so that's fine. I think I'm on track for that one. The books I have reread were Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. This time around I listened to one on audiobook. That was excellent. I also reread We Are Completely Beside Ourselves by Karen Joy Fowler. This is a book that was shortlisted for the Booker 10 years ago. and I love this book. I think it's excellent. I think it's very underrated. I also reread Notes on a Scandal by Zoe Heller, which I really enjoyed. If you like unlikable characters, if you like an unreliable narrator, you have to read Notes on a Scandal. And I also reread recently The Lighthouse by Alison Moore, which I read for my library book club. So that one, I mean, it was a reread, so it counts, but it wasn't a reread that I was necessarily like, I really want to reread this book. Like, I was happy to reread it for the book club, but it wasn't like the other ones where I was like, I really want to reread that book. But anyway, 4 so far, which I think is fine. My another goal was that I wanted to read some short story collections that were sitting on my shelf. I have a shelf, well, it's more like half a shelf of short story collections up there. And that's been going okay, but I've only actually finished one from my shelf so far, which was this little collection, short stories from the 19th century, selected by David Stewart Davies, which is a Wordsworth Classics edition. So yeah, I really I enjoyed this. So there were stories in here from Wilkie Collins, that was one of my favourite ones, Oscar Wilde, Arthur Conan Doyle. So I read that one, and then I am in the middle, she says, trying to find them, of some others. That's one of them. Where's it? I think they are behind me. So yeah, so the other short story collections that I am in the middle of is this set of detective stories chosen by Philip Pullman. I am probably about 2/3 of the way through that one. This Granta, Best of Young British Novelists. This is the one from 2013. They do it every 10 years. I've only read a couple in this, so I probably need to get cracking on that one. And I have also read some more from this whopper, The Locked Room Mysteries, edited by Otto Penzler. I'm about, I'd say maybe almost 1/3 of the way through. I mean, I'm not particularly expecting to finish that this year because it's massive, that's fine. But I'm really, really enjoying this one. So I do have some more short story collections up there. I may actually pick up another one and have like another one on the go as well, maybe, which is fine because it's short stories and they're by, so these are all anthologies, that as in by a variety of authors, so I think it doesn't matter to read them as in one go. Whereas if it was a short story collection by one author, I'd be more likely to read that pretty much like all together. So yeah, so the short story goal is okay, but probably could do with a little bit more effort. And then my main goal for 2024 was to read from my shelves. So some of these books have been on my shelf for a number of years, and I don't necessarily have a problem with having a shelf, shelves full of books that I haven't yet read. That makes me, I'm quite happy to have lots of books to choose from. However, the fact that some of them have been on there for some time now, I need to just either like read them or get rid. So my goal for that for 2024 was that I wanted at least 50% of the books that I pick up to come from my shelves, which is doable, but kind of is probably fairly ambitious because I do read a lot of library books. I have been reading much fewer library books this year. However, I am not meeting this goal because 40% of the books that I've picked up this year have been from my shelves. So that includes books that I read to completion and books that I've DNF. 40% have come from my shelves. When I've come up with this stat, again, I have discounted rereads because rereading is a separate goal. Some of the books I'm rereading I do own. Some of them I don't own. I'm getting them from the library. But either way, they're not from my TBR. So I've discounted rereads from this stat. So 40% have come from my shelves. That means 60% have come from the library. That's either from my local library or from the library at work. And of course, audiobooks. I mean, not that I've listened to that many, but the audiobooks that I've been reading have been coming from the library. So I probably need to make a bit more of an effort on reading more from my shelves. I mean, it's definitely an improvement on what it has been previously, but if I'm going to meet my goal, I do really need to make more of an effort to read from my shelves. There are a number of books that I'll be mentioning in my April wrap-up. from my shelves that I've DNF'd, which is fine. Like, don't have a problem with picking up books from my shelves, deciding, you know what, I'm just not feeling it anymore and DNFing it, because it makes room. And you may notice, I don't know if you'll notice behind me, there are like a few little gaps showing. Like, you won't be able to see down there, but like here and here, there are a few little gaps, which is exciting. I do, however, have a little pile of books down here that I've acquired recently, and I am today going to a bookshop and I will be buying books. So the next video you see will be a book haul. So it's good that there is a little bit of space. There's not going to be space for all these books on the shelves, but that's okay, because the goal is really more about turnover rather than reducing TBR. I want to read from my shelves so these books aren't sitting there for years upon years upon years and not getting read. But I don't necessarily, I'm not on a book buying ban, so it's not necessarily that I need to reduce the number. I just want to increase the turnover. So that's fine. So yeah, so that's how I'm doing with my goals for the year so far. And then I thought I would talk about my favourite books that I've read so far this year. Okay, so in terms of my favourite books of the year so far, obviously the books I've reread, which I've already mentioned, I've thoroughly enjoyed rereading those. Other than those, there's only one book that is new to me that I've given 5 stars so far, and there are 3 books that are new to me that I've given 4.5 stars. So that's 4 books in total that I will talk about now. So my 5-star read was Falling Animals by Sheila Armstrong. This is a book set on the coast of Ireland. It's quite a short book. It's about a small community. There is a body found on the beach, and we follow, we sort of see the different people that live in the community, the different links they've had with this person who's died. It's not a murder mystery. It's very much about the people, the community, the landscape. It's quite a quiet book, and I thought it was absolutely incredible. I have done an individual review video of this one, so I will link that down below. Onto my 4.5 star reads, In at the Deep End by Kate Davis, which was one that I listened to on audiobook. That is definitely my favourite audiobook that I've ever listened to. Granted, I have listened to probably like less than 10 audiobooks in my life, but In at the Deep End worked so well on audio. I thought the narrator was brilliant, and the voices that she did, the different characters, were so good. So In at the Deep End is about a young woman who has had sort of relationship problems with sort of the men that she's been dating, and then she comes to the realization that she is gay, and she develops a relationship with another woman. It is very, very funny. I thought it was absolutely hilarious, but also there are some serious themes throughout there as well. I thought it was absolutely excellent. Another 4.5 star read, there it is, which is another funny one, is The Pisces by Melissa Broder. So this is about a young woman who is depressed. She's taking some time away, and she develops a relationship with a merman. Again, I thought it was very funny and looks at some sort of more serious issues as well. And then the other book that I gave 4.5 stars was The Murder of My Aunt by Richard Hull. This is one of these British Library crime classics, and this is quite an unusual sort of golden age crime novel, because it is told in first person from this young man who lives with his aunt in this small town in Wales, and he really does not like living with his aunt. In fact, he doesn't like his aunt very much, and but he's tied to living there because of his something that was in like his family's will, and tied to inheritance and stuff, that he has to remain living with his aunt. So he starts to plot her demise. I thought this was excellent. I thought it was very funny, and just a really, really like entertaining read. So those are my favourite books that I've read so far this year. Those are the real sort of standout ones. So yeah, let me know how you're getting on with your reading goals so far this year, and let me know what your favourite reads of the year so far have been. Thank you so much for watching, and I will speak to you again very soon. Bye.